Welcome back to the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast. I'm Dale Corpus, a Senior Transition Specialist and real estate expert, and I help families navigate the overwhelming process of selling a senior's home while transitioning them into the right living environment. One of the biggest concerns families have is helping their aging loved ones remain safe and independent at home, and that's where home care comes in. Today, I'm joined by Tom Nelson, owner and president of Synergy Home Care, serving the Peninsula and South Bay. Tom has extensive experience in senior care and wellness, and his company is dedicated to providing high quality, non medical home care to seniors, people with disabilities, and families in need of extra support at home. Today, we're covering one, what home care is and how it differs from home health. Two, how home care helps seniors remain independent. Three, how caregivers are selected, trained, and vetted. Four, the key qualities that make an amazing caregiver. Five, common challenges families face when hiring home care services. And six, real life success stories from Synergy Home Care. If you or a loved one is considering home care, this episode will give you the expert knowledge you need to make the best decision. Let's get started.
Welcome to the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast, where we help families navigate senior living, real estate, and everything in between. Hosted by Senior Transition Specialist Dale Corpus, this show brings you expert insights, real solutions, and stress-free strategies to make senior transitions simple. Ready to dive in? Let's go.
And we are back. Hey, Tom, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Dale. Very exciting.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited to have you on the show. Can you start by sharing your background and what led you to become an owner of Synergy Home Care?
Well, that's a very loaded question that I'll try to keep it as succinct as possible. So I have a very extensive background in health and wellness. I started out in corporate wellness and being a trainer, fitness trainer. I have a master's degree in adaptive physical activity. So I work with people with disabilities as well as seniors, and also athletic training and health promotion. So I started my career that way, and I had about 25 years going through health and wellness and into medical fitness centers and community centers. I was the chief operating officer of the YMCA of Silicon Valley, went through that whole career process, and I came to a kind of crossroads in my life that, I needed something that, I had a little more control of. I have these big jobs, and coinciding with that, my wife got stage 4 cancer. So I really needed to have a job that it really cleared the deck for me to have a lot more flexibility instead of this big, executive type role, which I've had since 2006. I bumped into a friend of mine and he said, what's your situation? You know what? You should be an owner. He owned about 4 Orange Theories, fitness centers. And I'd never thought of that before. And I thought, you know what? Maybe I could be an owner. And he said, you're a great operator. You're a good leader, yada, yada. So I considered that. My parents had home care for 10 years. My mom has very advanced Alzheimer's, and my dad was drowning, helping take care of her. So when my mom transitioned into skilled nursing and my dad was by himself, this was right at the beginning of COVID. I exited the fitness industry in December 2019, got my license in March 2020, 1 week after everything shut down.
Wow.
So I got the crash course, being an entrepreneur, starting up a company, as well as now navigating COVID. Fortunately, my wife she's cancer-free. And so that was a good move. So we were able to support her better while launching this company. But it was really a circuitous kind of route. It wasn't planned. I did know that I needed more space for my personal life, and starting my own company, and with home care, with my experience with my parents and my experience in operations, working with people with disabilities, seniors, it just seemed like a really great fit. And 5 years later, we're coming up on my 5-year anniversary of being licensed, March 25th.
Nice.
Best decision I've ever made. And I'll never go back to corporate America again. I really enjoy what we're doing, not only the mission of helping
Mhm.
people, but also just the freedom to create my own culture with my
Mhm.
team and the work environment, because not only serving the clients, but the people that I've assembled
Yeah,
to partner with me, with my mission, aligns with their mission and their heart, has been an amazing experience.
I love it. Can I ask you what geographic area in the Bay Area do you cover?
Right. So when we started right Campbell, Los Gatos, and some West San Jose. But two
Mhm.
years in, I ended up purchasing the synergy of San Mateo. And I've
Okay.
expanded my territory to a contiguous territory from Hillsborough, Burlingame, all the way down to right on the cusp of South San Jose. So Cambrian, Campbell, Los Gatos as well. So we have changed our name now to Synergy Home Care of Silicon Valley because we really uh, serve that whole Silicon Valley area of most of San Mateo and Santa Clara County.
Okay.
And I also have
Um,
some neighboring synergies that also cover in the other areas as well.
yeah, perfect. You are the very first home care agency owner I brought on to the podcast. And just for education purposes, most people, confuse home care with home health. Can you explain the difference?
Yeah, there's very specific differences because many times when people are reaching out, they're thinking about home care, home health as somebody who is more medical. The
Mhm.
biggest difference is home health is medical. This is typically something that would be covered by your health insurance or Medicare or something like that. That would be a nurse. It would be a skilled
Mhm.
nursing type of situation or physical therapy, occupational therapy. They would come in and do medical type tasks, procedures. We do everything else. Let's say if you were in a hospital, all of the things that are non-medical, helping feed incontinence. If
Right.
it's someone who's bedbound, we help reposition them so they don't get bed sores. That is the most extreme. But if you go all the way back, we help keep people just safe and independent in their home. So if you have, let's say, a spouse that's taking care of their of their wife or husband, they need respite. I learned that firsthand when my dad was taking care of my mom. It's very, very stressful. And to
Yeah.
get that break, we will go in as little and just spend time. So
Yeah.
that would be more of a companion, but light housekeeping and those types of things. Home health isn't going to come in and help you prepare meals or do, uh, light housekeeping or clean things up or take you for a walk. They're there for medical. We're there for all of the things that help them stay independent or provide a little bit of respite or a little
Yep.
break for the people that are helping take care of them. Hopefully
Okay.
that's a
That does. Yep. That's a really good explanation. I know you talked about some of the services that you provide, but I know there are others. So, what types of other services does Synergy Home Care provide? You mentioned some housekeeping, and also, how do you tailor them to meet each client's needs?
So, we do a very thorough in-home care assessment. So
Hmm.
when we talk to somebody, who they give us a call or they send us an email, then a lot of times they're not clear about what exactly they need.
Right.
Because usually people are calling us when they're in some type of a crisis, or many times an adult child visits for the holidays and says, we're off the rails. We need help for mom and dad. And so we're not exactly sure what that means. So we go in, we meet in home. We don't require anybody to come to our office. Actually, most people do not ever see our office. We go to their
Right.
homes. That's the whole point. And we will do a thorough assessment, not only of their care needs, but also their personality, what they likes and dislikes, not only what their critical needs are, but what do they aspire? Do they want to be able to do more things that maybe being home and isolated has prevented them from doing? So
Okay.
really, we try to take a much more, person approach. So we're
Okay.
really checking out the full kind of continuum and spectrum of the things that are going to improve the quality of their lives. And I like to talk about upgrading people's lives, not just meeting their needs. So we
Yeah.
take that information, we create a very thorough care plan, everything from all the tasks that are needed as well
Yeah.
as their personalities. What type of caregiver would be a great fit? Do they like somebody who's talkative and they want to chat, or just somebody like keep quiet and just do the stuff, And
Yeah.
those are all different types of people, because that's what is going to create a successful match with
Yeah.
our team. And we take that extremely serious. And I think that's a differentiator for us, because we do take the time, because we know if we have a great match with the caregiver to the client, that
Yeah.
is going to be a good long-term fit for the caregiver, which is very important, as well as the client. And then, we have so many people that we've matched under all
Yeah.
circumstances that they almost become part of the family, because
Yeah.
we do spend that time
Yeah.
to make that match.
Yeah. Do your caregivers do things such as even meal prep, cooking, and maybe even taking them to doctor's appointments, things of that nature?
Absolutely. So that is the continuum. So if it is more what we call companion care, they're
Hmm.
helping with the things that they used to be able to do, but they can't do anymore. So, for example, like you just said, some light housekeeping. We'll do the things to keep things clean, typically between when the housekeeper comes. The deep cleaning that they do, we'll keep it maintained. We will help them go to the store, bring the groceries home, put them away, take them for a walk, help them with their PT exercises. We know so many times the physical therapist will assign something and they never do it. We'll make sure they're done, and we'll do it in a fun way that is consistent, so they see that progress. That is the more companion. Like I said, we'll go all the way to somebody who is bedbound. They need incontinence care. We will bathe them either in the shower or in bed. We will transfer them to a wheelchair, do all the things that are a higher level, and then all
Yeah.
the way up to hospice support. So
Okay.
we're not medical, but we will do the other 23 and a half hours that the home health doesn't do, as I mentioned before. All of those things to keep them safe,
Yeah.
keep them from getting bed sores, feeding, and then all the companion things and the housekeeping part. Just really to make the quality of their lives the best, so they can stay at home, because that is the preference. Most people don't want to be in the hospital or a rehab or various other out-of-home options
Yeah.
a lot of the time until it's necessary, or until they decide that's best for them.
Got it. Let's pivot a little bit, and I want to
Sure.
talk more about your caregivers. Um, how do you find and vet caregivers before they join your team?
Right. So it takes us about 40 interviews to find one
Oh,
that we like.
okay.
I had a full-time HR manager, and I
Hmm.
would say 95% of her time is recruiting and
Okay.
screening and really finding out if that caregiver has a heart for caregiving. That is number one. It's hire the right person and train for skill. Now, certainly, we need to hire for certain positions. They need to bring skill to the table, like some of the hospice support and those things. We're looking for somebody who has experience in that. But if they don't have the heart, if they don't have that team, uh, we're all supporting and help watching each other's backs on how we can best help the client. If they don't have that, that's not going to be a fit for our agency. And I'm sure they'll find, caregivers are in high demand. They'll find a great job somewhere else, but to work for us, we want to make sure we have the right fit for our culture and they have the right heart. From there, they go through they're licensed through the state, or they're registered for this through the state through a live scan. They make
Right.
sure that they pass the background check and the fingerprinting. Live scan is a little different because it's not just a background check. If anything happens along the way, where if they are convicted of a crime or something, that immediately comes to me. We're associated with that caregiver with the Department of Social Services, and we will remove them right away.
Hmm.
That happens very, very infrequently. I've had about 2,500 caregivers come through, and that's only happened once to me. So that's very thorough. There are requirements as a licensed home care operator. So we are licensed through the state. We have to have all our employees are our employees, no contractors.
Yeah.
So part of that is we have minimum amount of training, which is 5 to 7 hours right out of the gate, as
Okay.
well as then we bring them in for a thorough orientation. We do an intro and make sure that they're trained to that client
Hmm.
specifically, because they may have all kinds of experience with For example, somebody with Alzheimer's, that continuum of Alzheimer's is different for every single person. So we want to make sure they're trained and a fit for that client specifically. And then we follow up and make sure that through our care director, that the care plan is working for them. They can meet all the tasks of the care plan. Also talking to the client, is this meeting your needs? What else can we do? So it's an ongoing kind of living process. We don't just, it's not a one and done and send them in. And then we have a myriad of very specific trainings, as I mentioned before, like for example, Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Synergy has a very specific memory care program, which is an additional 10 to 12 hours of training to help them be successful for every type of situation they could have with someone with Alzheimer's or general dementia. We also have a Parkinson's training. We're one of the very few partners for community care partners with the Parkinson's Foundation, which our care director went through a multi-day training. And now she is the trainer to our caregivers, and they train specifically for Parkinson's. We also have a hospital to home program. We also have a cancer care specific program. So after the very general training they do, if they have a very specific client, we will then give them specialized training specific to that client. So that way they're receiving the best care and they're set up for success.
Got it. One of the things you said, when you're vetting out caregivers is that you're trying to see if they have a heart for this business. What other key qualities make a great caregiver?
So the key qualities is that, they are already doing caregiving in their life. Many times we're talking to people one of the things we ask is, why did you become a caregiver? And it's very interesting because I would say more often than not, that applicant says, wow, nobody else ever asked me that. I've applied to a few other home care agencies and nobody asked me that question. Many times the quality is they're a good engaged listener. Their background is, I took care of my grandparents and I just love it. These are people that are taking care of people on their own time. They're doing it. So not somebody who's looking for a job to just sit and be babysitters. That's not what we're looking for. But these are people who are engaged. You can tell by how they talk about why they became, and it just comes out of them, and you can tell. And then what is their career path then? They work jobs that are not always just caregiving, but also service type jobs. That is their trend. And those are really great clues. But, somebody who wants to be there, is engaged, a good listener, and really cares about people. Those are the key qualities. All of the skills, we can train the skills, but if they don't have that, they're not long for caregiving because, and I should also step back. We call our caregivers care professionals because I was an accidental caregiver for my parents. I just got thrown in and taking care of them. These are people who have chosen this as their profession and were trained, and they are paid to provide expert professional caregiving for the staff. And that's, we set them up, and we want to make sure we have people that are in it to be professional caregivers, not just something they think they can do for a while to make ends meet for a little bit, because that never works out for anybody.
I get it. What's the difference between a licensed home care agency like yours versus hiring a private caregiver?
Right. Yeah. So that's a great question. So the biggest difference is the cost. First of all, and that's what attracts people to a private caregiver, because you're just hiring somebody typically under the table. If it's above the table, you still have to pay taxes, workers' comp, those, you become the employer if you are doing it correctly, like that the Department of Labor wants you to do. Right. Typically it's under the table. So you're paying cash to a private person. As in a licensed licensed agency, we have to be licensed through the state. We need to have all of the insurance, workers' comp, general liability, theft, abuse, all of those types of things. It's very expensive, and that adds on to the cost. We also, because there are our caregivers or employees, all of the training requirements, the payroll tax, all of the different overhead and layers, making sure they're trained. And then the biggest thing is if that caregiver doesn't show up,
Hmm.
they're sick,
Yeah.
whatever, they call us, we send in a backup if they want a backup.
Mhm.
Some clients, if it's just companion, they say, oh, they're sick. That's okay. We'll see them next time. But if they need somebody to be there, absolutely, our hospice clients or somebody who needs very specific personal care to make sure they're getting their day off correctly, um, we will make sure they're there. A private caregiver, they don't show up, no one's coming.
Hmm.
And you have to manage that. And sometimes a caregiver, for whatever reason, will ghost you, meaning they
Hmm.
just don't come and they don't respond. Most of the caregivers that we hire, because we've gone through that process, these people are in it, they're not doing that, but it happens. And I don't know what their circumstance is. It's
Right.
maybe something very personal. I'm not judging, but that
Right.
happens. And when that happens, if you are hiring a private caregiver, then you don't have anybody.
Yeah.
And then, I don't want to get into the scare tactic around this, but if there is a situation where the caregiver comes back and says, hey, you didn't pay me correctly. I didn't get my overtime. I didn't get my breaks. I just reported you to the Department of Labor and you're paying them under the table. That's a problem. And that
Yeah.
caregiver you've left for years, sometimes I've seen that happen. Or if they hurt themselves and they say,
Hmm.
yes, myself at work. Now they contact you because you're their employer. So
Mm.
that's the kind of overarching
Right.
difference. So with private, more risk, lower cost.
Yep.
With the agency, you have more consistency of care, lower risk, and then you're covered with all of the other areas. And we coordinate and take care of everything. We're one call. You don't have to do all those other things. So some people can't afford a license and they have to go that route. And I understand that, but they just need to know what's going, eyes wide open, what they're looking at.
Yeah, you did a really good job of explaining things, even, brought things to light that I didn't even think about. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Um, how do you handle situations where a family feels their caregiver isn't the right match?
Yeah. That happens all the time.
Uh-huh.
And we'll typically work with the family. So what I always like to say, synergy, is working together for the best outcome, right? So we partner with the families and the clients to provide the best care. So many times we try to look at, well, what is the conflict? What are you not happy with? Is it a personality thing? Is it they didn't do a task correctly? Because many times, if we're able to give the caregiver feedback and let them correct the issue, the thing
Yeah.
about a professional caregiver is their goal is to provide care and make the client happy.
Hmm.
So we have pretty thick skins. Let us know. Do we do something wrong? We didn't say something correctly, or we did a task incorrectly. Give us some feedback. If we can't correct it, if they give us a week or two or whatever makes sense to try to correct the behavior or whatever the reason they're not loving the caregiver, then we will absolutely make a switch, and
Hmm.
we already have the information, and we'll go and find another caregiver that's a good fit. Um, but many times I've seen going through that process of just smoothing out the edges, and there's a learning curve in the beginning to get to know the client, they
Hmm.
get to know the caregiver. They turn out to be a great fit for all the reasons why we thought they would be in the beginning. And there's just an introduction process that just took a little smoothing over. But if it's hey, I said I didn't want to talk her and she talked my ear off all the time, and we missed that, then sure, that's not going to get fixed. We're not changing people's
Yeah.
personality. We're looking for a good fit. And if we
Yeah.
miss the fit, which doesn't happen that often, but does, then we'll correct it, but we'll make that determination. But hey, we want to make the client happy. If they're not happy with the caregiver, we're going to always make a change, but we're also going to help them see around the corner that maybe this is a good fit. Let's try to fix it, before we make a switch.
Perfect. What are some of the biggest challenges families face when bringing in home care?
Yeah, so a lot of times, from a family perspective, um, the adult children see the
Right.
need. They say, "Mom, you absolutely need help. Dad is working himself, to complete exhaustion.
Hmm.
He needs a break. You need more assistance in some of these things." But the parents or the clients aren't quite ready. They're refusing care. Getting back to that
Hmm.
home health, home care confusion.
Yeah.
I don't need a nurse. I don't need, anybody changing my diapers or whatever. So there's an immediate resistance a lot of the time because they're slowly losing their independence. And that's a real hard thing. And it's a real
Yeah.
thing. So, that is probably the biggest challenge is to work with the family to really get everybody involved in the process. Okay, what would be helpful for you?
Hmm.
And what would be the level of care that you would accept? And our agency kind of took a step back from the industry norm, which was minimums per day or per week. We will do 1 hour a day if that's what they
Wow.
would agree to. Absolutely. Our rates change a little bit. If it's 1 hour, we have an adjusted rate for 1 hour, but you don't have to do 8 hour minimum or 4 hour or 12 or
Got it.
whatever some agencies are doing these days. So sometimes that's all it takes to have a little bit of help. We also have a program where we'll do like a wellness check, and that's paired with home monitoring, and that's a way that they can get started, which is better than nothing, and get introduced to home care. So that way, oh, okay, this is great. Can you come next Thursday? Once they
Hmm.
get used to it and they understand it. But I think the immediate reaction and the biggest challenge, to circle back to the question, is that understanding what it is and how it can help without feeling like you're getting decisions and your life, your independence being taken away. Because these have
Yeah.
been the parents for their whole life. They've been calling
Right.
the shots and making the rules and doing just fine on their own in their eyes. We don't need
Right.
anybody. But even though they need somebody now, or maybe it's a good time to get connected with somebody before things progress, especially with a progressive illness like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. Like we can do a little care now, but it's better to have a connection with an agency. So when things go off the rails, we're already connected. We can increase the
Mhm.
level of care to meet their needs. So that way they don't get into that crisis mode.
Okay. How do you work with other professionals like doctors, therapists, or senior living advisors to coordinate care?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have some really good referral partners that know our, quality, our integrity. I think the biggest thing when we are working side by side, let's say with a physical therapist or somebody
Yeah.
like that, we are making sure we are aligned with their goals from a health perspective. As I mentioned before, if
Mhm.
there's exercises they need to do, let's say either to strengthen them or to help them recover from a procedure like a hip replacement or a knee or something like that. We'll make sure that we're aligned with them. With
Mhm.
senior placement folks like yourself, we are making sure that we are helping provide the best care that is also aligned with their goals. So let's say they want to move to a certain facility or something within the next 6 months, but they
Mhm.
need help being safe and independent until that point. We will work side
Yeah.
by side and making sure they have the level of care they need. So they don't have a fall or something like that before they get into the assisted living or whatever facility to go enjoy that community. Because I've seen that happen too. They wait too long and something happens, and then now they're in a medical situation as opposed to a lifestyle upgrade to a community with people if that's what they're looking for. Um,
Okay. And next question is for home care, is it only for long term support or can it also be used temporarily?
so yeah, so we have all of the above. So we've done hip replacement recovery. somebody who, let's say, families going out of town and they need somebody, or let's say the children who are adult children who are typically they're helping, they're going on vacation and they need somebody for their folks. We'll do that for a week or something like that. But typically
Yeah.
it's long term. Um, but we have all of the above. And then if there's end of life comfort care, like hospice support, those aren't usually very long, but we're in there to make sure their last days are the best possible. So we don't have a requirement. We don't have a long-term contract. Our agreements are only the terms, as far
Yeah.
as, just cost and things like that based on their level of care and all that. So we're here to help. We even do a little bit of Medicare right now, which is usually 20 hours um, post procedure, and that's kind of what it's set up right now. And we've also done a little bit of gap care. There's something called IHSS that I didn't mention before because that's kind of in between private. That's for people in Medicaid that can't afford services. We've also provided some gap care while they're waiting for their in-home support services, IHSS caregiver through the county. We've provided short-term kind of as a goodwill. So we our foundation is we want to help. So if it's a day or if it's, multiple years, we're ready to go. 1
Yeah.
hour to 24/7.
Nice. Let's switch gears again and let's talk about some success stories and some
Sure.
real life impact of home care. Can you share a success story, past or present, of a senior who was able to thrive at home because of your services?
Yeah, I'll tell you. We've had one recently that is just amazing. So we had a gentleman who had mid-stage Parkinson's, not,
Hmm.
advanced, but not, early diagnosis. And he was living on his own. And he was the classic, I don't need any help. Both of his daughters live out of state.
Hmm.
So, they called us. He absolutely refused care. We were
Okay.
able to work with the daughters to give it a try. We had a
Mm.
strategy. We started with a low level of care. We made sure that the caregivers had the Parkinson's training, so they could be prepared and equipped to deal with what he was dealing with.
Yeah.
Because it's so important to understand that, especially with Parkinson's. And I have a background in Parkinson's. I had adapted exercise programs back in the 90s. I used to run two big Parkinson's exercise classes through the city of San Jose. But many times you'll ask them a question and it takes them a while to respond, or you ask them to do something and it takes them a while to move, because that is
Hmm.
the issue with Parkinson's. It's the connection between the brain and their motor skills is the
Hmm.
delay. And even though the brain is sharp, they're they're having a little bit delay. So we put not only a prepared right fit caregiver from a skill perspective and the
Yeah.
ability to meet his needs, but the right fit person, the heart. We put a caregiver in there who has a track record with us to persevere through very difficult clients. And
Yeah.
so you take Parkinson's, independent, doesn't want care, little rude at times,
Yeah.
and you need that person to come in with the full, well, knowing, what they're up against. And that's part
Yeah.
of that match. And I'll tell you what, first time, and I don't even know how many other caregivers from either agencies or private that he's kicked out of there in the past, but we finally got over the hump. He got to the point where he appreciated the care. We're
Yeah.
able to accommodate not full days, but we had a morning shift and an evening shift to meet his needs, and he still had his independence. He could, leave me alone. The daughters have cameras and they can see what he's doing because they're from out of state, and they're just time and time again, they have let us know just how grateful they are. And these are the
Yeah.
things is amazing because he was really a risk. He's by himself. He had incontinence. I mean, you can imagine he's just trying, I mean, and plus the Parkinson's on top of everything else. Um,
Yeah.
it was amazing. And I have this little thing, I have a bell in my office, and we ring the bell when caregivers go above and beyond and really serve a client and have that success story. So we rang that bell and I put it up on our TikTok and share it with the caregiver and because those are really the true magical moments that
Yeah.
confirms that I'm in the right business, you know?
Yep. Nice. What's one of the most rewarding experiences you've had working with a client?
The most rewarding for me is super personal because my dad was my first client.
Oh,
So he allowed me to make all the rookie mistakes because when I first started this business, I thought, hey, I used to run a, multi-million dollar, corporate,
yeah.
P&L. And this is a client, caregiver, put them together, bill them by the hour. How hard can it be? This is the most nuanced business I've ever dealt with. And the people and the moving parts.
Yeah.
And he, the whole time that I was working with him, he was just giving me amazing feedback and just like, oh, this is what this person did. This is what that. Yeah, that was great. And like, and help me go through the process without working with a real client. And
Yeah.
and my dad, I put him on a poster in my office. Both my parents passed last year, so that was amazing to me, and that was the most rewarding. But I have rewarding experiences with clients, like I just described with the
Yeah.
Parkinson's client, all the time, all the time. And the culture and the message to my team is that we are upgrading lives. We are always going to do the right thing, even if
Mhm.
we're eating our margins or whatever.
Mhm.
We're going to make sure that the care comes first and our caregivers come first. And that creates the opportunity to have those amazing moments and those great experiences with clients.
Nice. Nice. Let's talk about the future of home care and trends in senior care. How do you see home care evolving over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I hope it evolves in a way that it becomes more accessible and affordable to more
Yeah.
people. As it is
Yeah.
right now, most of my clients are private pay. So it's either private
Mhm.
pay, they're paying out of their pockets. They have long-term care insurance,
Yep.
which many people have, and they have the foresight. Fortunately, my parents both had the foresight to have long-term care insurance. There
Yeah.
are veterans benefits that they'll pay
Yeah.
for care. And then there's, IHSS, as I mentioned before, but you have to have a very, very low income. There's a lot of people in that middle ground
Right.
that can't quite afford the rack rate for home care with a licensed, agency. And also the even the private caregivers, there's going to be more need than than uh than than we can provide supply.
Right.
Um, and there's going to be more need for some type of subsidy to be able to provide that. And there won't be
Right.
enough assisted living communities or memory care centers to accommodate it. So there needs to be some new, technology progress
Right.
to be able to meet or supplement just the one-on-one, because the one-on-one with the caregiver is the most expensive way.
Right.
You're employing a person to be there with you, and all of their time. And no matter if you're paying them under the table or not, it just costs a lot of money.
Right.
Um,
Right.
we've actually brought in some technology, which is home monitoring, which is
Hmm.
motion sensing. It has
Right.
kind of an AI component or machine learning component, which actually
Right.
tracks and understands their normal routines. And we connect that with the family. So that way, if somebody is doing something abnormal, like normally they get up at 9 o'clock in the morning and they didn't get up until 11, that's odd. So that'll notify the family. Or let's say they normally go to the bathroom twice a night, and last night they went 10 times. That might be, a UTI or something like that. And that will alert the family. It's a way to get eyes and support and help them before crisis hits. And that's a great way, because a lot of times people are in isolation. They don't have eyes on them. They just kind of out of sight, out of mind. And until something happens, now they need all these services. I feel like if the future is, how do we provide the right amount of care through, high touch and high tech, to give them what they need at an affordable level, to keep them at home as long as possible, or until they're ready to move into an assisted living or something like that. My dad eventually moved to assisted living because he's a super social guy. It was a great fit for him. But some people want to stay home, and that's great too. So those are the things we need to come up, and there are advancements right now, as I just described, and that's a program we have. It's our Safe at Home program, where we combine those, and also with a once a week wellness check. So that way we actually get real eyes on them with the technology. And that's a great option for somebody who is what we call pre-need. They don't need 4 hours a day or something like that, but they do need to have somebody in there that they need them to parachute in, or, the adult child says, hey, my mom didn't get up. Can you go check on them? Something like that. And we're trying to get ahead of that curve to be, offering those types of solutions.
Love it.
And I can only imagine what others are conjuring up right now to solve this, widespread problem that we're going to have lots of people that need help that won't be able to afford it, or there aren't options for them because the resources are all consumed.
What advice would you give to someone looking into home care for their loved one, but doesn't know where to start?
Yeah, I think, first of all, selfishly, call me. So one of the things is, I would say, start with, you can call a home care agency, many of which we, really focus on a kind of a 360 resource base. So if you need somebody to help you put handrails in your house, I've got somebody who can do that. If you need somebody to help you with placement, we have great resources for that. Many times the home care or other, agencies like, and industries like yourself will have other options. I think first and foremost, just reach out and inform yourself from the beginning, because it's really important to start early, and you'll be able to make really good, thoughtful, informed choices, as opposed to being in crisis mode where you're dealing with emotion and mom's falling and dad's yelling and, all these things that happen when crisis hits. When you start to notice there might be a need, start informing yourself, calling anybody kind of in that senior space, home care, placement. There's care managers. There's lots of different people that you can look up. But, we've made it, our imperative priority to make sure we have a variety of people we can refer to that I know have high integrity, that can help them. So that way they can get off on the right foot and make the best informed decision on their next steps. But from a home care perspective, really understanding those options, IHSS, private, and then how you would pay for that, is really a great place to start, because those are really important factors in that decision.
Perfect. What's one common myth about home care that you'd love to debunk?
I think the common myth is that it's just nurses coming to change diapers and doing the things. And it's, that's what I hear over and over and over again. And, it's not, it is really, helping the client meet their goals. And that's what we talk
Mm-hmm.
about all the time. Is like, they say, well, what can you do? Well, we've got a list. I have a little flyer. It's like 50 ways we can help you, but we're not going to do all 50 things for every client. It's
Right.
what is their goal? What do they want to achieve? And then we can match that with them. But I think the knee jerk reaction, because it's people, and I can see myself in the same light. Um,
Right.
I don't need that. I'm fine. I'm doing just great, and I
Mm-hmm.
think because they think it's more than they need, or they're not clear on what it is. So I think better understanding what help is available, and that's on me. It's the marketing of the services to understand
Mm-hmm.
what is it, because there is a lot of it's not even misinformation. It's just lack of information on what it is, because people aren't thinking about it um, until you need it. It's like looking at buying a new car. As soon as you know what kind of car you want, you see it all over the place. Same
Mm-hmm.
thing. They don't know what it is, but they have a myth or a misunderstanding of really what it is. And typically they think it's something they don't need, unless they have a friend that's done it. That's usually what happens. Oh, my friend had that person that helped. But unless they have a personal experience, that's usually the myth, that it's medical and they don't need it.
Okay. Very cool. I have a fun question to throw at you.
Uh,
What's something about you that most people don't know?
Oh boy. Well, um, one thing I would say is that up until COVID hit, I would pick, and I think this is what prepared me for home care. I would
Okay.
impose challenges on myself. So every year I
Mm-hmm.
would do some very grueling, hard thing. So in 2016, I ran the New York Marathon. I'm not a marathoner. I trained for it all year. I've done a Spartan race, a Spartan Super. I've done 100-mile centuries on road bikes. I've
Yeah.
done mountain biking events, those types of things. And I feel like you you grow in the struggle. So
Yeah.
I've always been somebody who has imposed that upon myself and taken myself out of comfort zone and put a
Yeah.
big goal. So I know I had to train for it. It's something you just can't roll
Yeah.
out of bed and do. Otherwise it'll be even more suffering than it's supposed to be. Um, and I think that has helped me with my struggles with um, starting a business is no joke. I think 95% of the businesses that started in COVID are no longer in business. Feel so grateful to be able to not only survive, but thriving now and being able to absorb another business and to be able to serve more people. Um, but yeah, I'm actually plotting my next big event now that I've cleared the deck to have a little bit more time, and I've got an amazing team. That's taken me most of 5 years to get this incredible
Wow.
team. We didn't really talk about that, but my office
Wow.
team are incredible people, and they are now giving me the opportunity to help give myself a little bit more balance now, that entrepreneurial arc. Um,
Yep.
so I can get back to doing crazy things physically.
Hey, what's the most rewarding part of working with seniors and their families?
Oh my gosh. The most the most rewarding part is to see just the stress
Mm-hmm.
and the feeling like, okay, it's going to be okay. Because until they understand how we are able to help them, the stress, especially in that crisis stage. I mean, we get so many. My mom's getting discharged tomorrow. We're supposed to have home care, and just to see the family, and especially the family caregivers,
Yeah.
just that relief
Yeah.
is everything. That is the most rewarding, because that's our job, is to remove the stress, not create more stress. Um, and then of course all the other um, the happiness and the content and getting, good reviews. We received award, the provider of choice, where all of our
Mhm.
clients are surveyed by a third party. HomeCare Pulse is a national program, and we received above a 9 out of 10 from
Mm.
all of our clients, and that is amazing. That's very rewarding. But solving that problem, just knowing what it's like to be that family caregiver and having
Yeah.
that personal experience of just that you're overwhelmed, and to
Yeah.
see that to go away. And now they go, okay, it's going to be okay. We have a partner here. We're going to get over this hump. So that to me, 1000% is the most rewarding.
Okay. Last question is
Yeah.
there anything I didn't ask you yet that I should have?
Gosh, I think I touched on it a little bit. One of the questions is, maybe how are we different as an agency,
Mhm.
not only from other agencies and private and those types of things, but for me, one of the biggest differentiators for us, besides the specialty programming and all the support and the training and all those things, as I just mentioned it, I have the most amazing team. And each person, and I'm talking about the office team, the caregivers, I already talked about our process, but their focus is to support our caregivers so they can do their best work. And
Mhm.
that is no small feat. We staff above and beyond so we can be very responsive all
Mhm.
hours of the day to make sure the caregivers have what they need, so they can do
Mhm.
their best work. Because if we're not supporting the caregivers, I can guarantee you our clients aren't getting the service and support they need. And I just did a self-imposed um, survey from the Survey Monkey to 150 of my currently active caregivers that are in regular assignments with us. I have a roster of 2,500 caregivers that has worked with us that are still eligible to return, because that's how this works. It's um, because there's clients come and go, so caregivers need to work.
Yeah.
But I sent out 150 surveys, and the survey wasn't just how do you like working for Synergy? It was how did Janelle support you, and how do you feel about her caring about you as a person? How about Markel? How about Annette? How about Alana? And do you feel like Tom, as the owner, cares about me as an individual and supports me with a culture to do my best work to make this as an employer of choice? We got a 9.5 out of 10. We
Wow.
got nearly 60 responses. And I would say most of the 60 responses were people who are our regular caregivers who are interacting and
Mhm.
are experiencing our support. And I am extremely proud of that. I was a little nervous to get the results, I'll be honest. But when it came back, I was not surprised because I
Yeah.
have an incredible team, and it wasn't an average of these people got great scores and these people got about. Everybody was above a 9, and that's to me the most important part of this job is that we're supporting the caregivers to support the client. Um, and I spent a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of focus and a culture to create that for that.
Nice. Wow. This has been an incredibly valuable conversation. Thank you, Tom, for shedding light on how home care works, what makes a great caregiver, and how families can make informed decisions about senior care. Before we wrap up, how can families reach out to you if they have questions or want to explore home care options?
Yeah, so you can reach out. You can Google Synergy Home Care. Our website will pop right up. You can also email me personally at tomnelson@synergyhomecare.com. You can also call us at 408-429-8769. That is a phone only, not a text. But any of those ways to get in touch with us, we're very responsive. We'll get right back to you. Even if it's a question about something that's adjacent to our services, we can point you in the right direction. But we're happy to answer anybody's questions, regardless of what stage they're in, something maybe thinking about years in the future or something you need right now. We're happy to help.
Perfect. And for those of you watching on YouTube, if your loved one is considering home care or selling their home as part of senior transition, let's talk. Schedule a free consultation with me by clicking on my Calendly link on the video description box. Again, if you're watching on YouTube. And also learn more about my services at www.simplifyseniortransitions.com. If you have a quick question, you could DM me on Instagram at soldbydale. And if you found this interview helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who might need this information. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks, Tom, again for joining me on this episode. And I will see you on the next episode of the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast.